you. Thanks for tuning into the Waiting List podcast. I'm Long Long.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Jacqueline. And we are three watch friends with a healthy obsession for watches.
So sit back and relax with us while we chat with collectors, industry giants, and share some good vibes. Okay, welcome to the pod, guys, where today we welcome a fellow watch podcaster. It's Andy from the OT podcast. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Welcome.
Hi.
Good to be here.
Right. I suspect that this episode is going to come out after Felix's.
Mm-hmm.
So if you missed that one, make sure you go back and listen to it. I'd give you the episode number, but like I said, it hasn't been released yet. So before we start, though, originally, Andy, you were supposed to actually do the podcast with Felix, and you kind of flaked out because you developed toothache. Like, first of all, how's it going with your tooth?
Yeah, I had a medical emergency just moments before us. It was actually not a toothache. I cut my gum open, aggressively snacking. So I had to rush off to the dentist, embarrassingly, and get that looked at, which was quite the ordeal because we were still in lockdown in Melbourne. So there was all these kind of hoops that I had to run through, but all fine. I overreacted as I normally do to medical emergencies. Thank you.
Right.
I have a question. What were you snacking on that cut your gum open?
Okay, so it's like this dried mushroom snack that becomes they dehydrate them and they become like a chip type thing. Or have you had those?
Yeah, those are dangerous.
They are, right? Yeah, it just went straight down.
I don't know. You just mentioned mushrooms. I was like, oh, okay.
No, I just find it so funny, right?
But it tastes really good.
They taste so good, but they're torturous to eat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what got me.
I think we're talking about different things, but it's okay.
Oh.
Maybe.
Just kidding.
No, I think it's funny because, right, first of all, before the podcast, and we found out you had toothache, Felix and I were just talking, well, all of us, because I'm medically trained as a dentist. I didn't know if you know that, right? So I was giving him free advice, trying to work out, and Felix was like, I don't know, I'm not the dentist, because I was trying to find out what was wrong, right? And then, I think it's funny, this last week, Jacqueline here has had toothache, right, as well, and that so badly that she actually missed, our interview with Aldous Hodge, which we kind of prepped for I don't know, half a year trying to get him on the show.
Yeah,
I couldn't speak.
Yeah. And now we're talking about mushrooms, and Long, gets a Noki mushroom stuck in her teeth. Yeah. Right. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Can I just say, if I keep on laughing throughout this episode, I can't get over your new haircut. You look like an egg. You literally look like a hard-boiled egg. Like, your new haircut is shaping your forehead into an egg.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks.
Yeah. Say when we record videos from now on, I just can't look at you. I'm just gonna have to look at Long because I can't laugh until you grow your hair out.
Wow.
Okay, I'm sleep deprived. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, thanks for that. Savageness. Thanks you. Savageness straight o'clock at 10 o'clock in the morning. Thanks.
Yeah.
Right. So, Andy, what is the best part of running the podcast for you, in your opinion?
Yeah, great question. So for me, starting the podcast, we started it in March last year. So right when the pandemic was sort of taking off for us in Australia. And we sort of went from, being on this big island where you could kind of go around, gallivant, do whatever you wanted. And we entered a state of, just lockdown, which everyone in the world has experienced. But we're very disconnected, right? So being in watches, we were used to going to fairs. We were used to traveling around the country, around the world, catching up with, people like yourself at watch fairs, if we were stopping over in different countries on the way to watch fairs. And it was just part of working in watches was always sort of traveling, and there's all these, international and national events. And so I think the best part has been connecting and being able to still connect with people around the world. It doesn't have to be Aldous Hodge, doesn't have to be a celebrity. It could be, a friend overseas, and just kind of dragging them on the podcast to talk to them. And for that hour and a half, 2 hours that you chat to them, it's a catch up whilst you're also creating something for other people. So probably a 2-part answer. For me, it's been a massive distraction. I feel like I've not really experienced lockdown because I've always got, something to look forward to, something to do. And I'm always kind of meeting and chatting to interesting people.
How did you actually come up with the name?
We were just kind of rushing at that point. Felix and I were both sort of working full time, and it was going to be like a project outside of work hours. So we kind of thought, do we do abbreviations? Do we give something that doesn't have meaning? So OT does sort of stand for something that's sort of like a loosely held secret. But
okay.
Yeah, we just picked it and ran with it.
Like a lot of podcasts, right, have come and gone, like especially watch podcasts, right?
Yeah.
You know, a few actually probably barely make, I don't know, even 20, 30 episodes, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think here that the audience doesn't have an appreciation of when you run a podcast?
The time that goes into it, right? Like for us, we were in lockdown learning how to do it. The investment. So we started off recording in a studio. So like it cost us a lot of money to get up and running and a lot of time. And as you guys know, when you're teaching yourself to edit and you're putting it all together and you don't have that sort of multimedia background, putting together a 1 hour episode of a show can be 10 hours of work when you factor in, landing a guest, preparing for it, doing the actual recording, the time either side of it, the editing, making all the collateral to go with the show. If there's sponsorship, putting all that sort of stuff in as well, working with the brands, the admin. So I think for like 1 hour of podcast, it's probably like 8 to 10 hours of work. So that's probably the big thing. And look, it's sort of that I'm used to creating content because I used to write about watches quite a lot with Felix. And, it's consumable content, right? So people consume it and then they kind of move on to the next thing. And with articles, it was sort of like you'd spend a day, sometimes a week writing an article that someone consumed in 15 minutes. And it's sort of, I think that the actual effort and energy that goes into creating it is probably a little bit underappreciated. Not that people don't appreciate what we do. It's just, I don't think people really realize how much work goes into it, right? Like you just said, 6 months for Aldous Hodge. Like it's no accident. And I think some people assume that, watch brands just give you access to their ambassadors, celebrities and musicians and whoever, just email you asking to come onto the show. Brands are emailing you, trying to send you out watches every day to talk about. It's actually, it's a lot of work for, a little bit of reward.
So how do you actually separate that workload between you and Felix? Because on the podcast here, the three of us here, there's actually another gentleman, like also behind the scene, Chester, that helps out as well. Like how do you split the work?
So we had a producer at the start for probably the first year of the show, and we were just moving at a pace where we couldn't kind of keep him in the loop because we were sort of doing 1 to 2 episodes a week, at least 1 episode a week. There was different kind of components around guests, around sponsorship, and sort of we worked out after that first year that it wasn't sustainable for us in terms of just the time frame. It wasn't really a money issue; it was more of the fact that we couldn't kind of get him the notes, get the episodes edited and reviewed, and then, if they need to be changed or touched up or anything need to be taken out and then reviewed again, we couldn't do that in a turnaround time that worked for us. So I took over doing the editing and that kind of fit in nicely with some of the other work that we do that Felix is better suited to. So a lot of the like the copywriting, the writing stuff that we do a lot of work for watch brands and retailers as well, on top of just sort of the audio kind of component of the podcast. So we just kind of worked out, playing to our strengths. And Felix and I have a really nice relationship where he's been writing about watches for probably 10 or 11 years. And that to him is just absolute bread and butter. And he can just switch that on really quickly. I have to kind of put myself into like that mode of writing, and I have to really carve out some time, whereas he can just kind of, for him, it's just like starting a car. So if there's anything, that is copy related, it's straight over to him. If it's anything probably more, editing or multimedia related, it goes to me. And we kind of just split the actual podcast, recording and chatting and guests and logistics side of things down the middle.
Okay. Right. So what about what do you think has been the highlight of the show for you so far then? Because you've been operating for 2 years now. You're the same time as us, really, because we started during COVID time as well.
Yeah, I'd say, it must be a year and a half now, March. 18 months. There's actually been so many highlights.
You're supposed to say this one.
This is the peak. And then after reaching the peak, as I head back down the hill, we have a limited edition watch. It's probably going to be out by the time, I don't know when this is coming out, but we have a limited edition watch coming out, which is sort of something we never thought we would do, but we got approached last year, and it's been coming up on 12 months in the making for us. And we've just seen like images of the first sort of prototypes, which is really cool. Because we just never thought we would ever do it. And it's just really kind of come together nicely. Heaps and heaps of work there. I mean, some of the guests that we've had on, I'm pretty proud of as well. I think we've pulled some really interesting kind of special people on the show. If I was to call out my favorite ever episode, it's probably James Cox.
That's what Felix said as well.
Yeah, that was one where I was just chatting to Felix, and I briefly kind of chatted to James around the time of the auction because my friend was in New York and did a print of the watch, and so she was part of the exhibition with Phillips. And so she introduced me and we were kind of chatting a little bit at the time of the auction. And I thought, why has no one ever kind of got this guy to tell his story? Because everyone was so focused on the Paul Newman side of it. And I thought, hold on, like imagine dating Paul Newman's daughter. Like that would have been pretty cool. Imagine Paul Newman giving you a watch and then imagine that turning out to be the most expensive wristwatch, ever sold at the time. And this huge windfall as a result. Like that's a pretty remarkable human story. And so it just so happened I managed to get back in contact with him and pin him down for this chat that was so authentic to him and his personality, but also told this other side of this crazy, crazy story. So I call it like the best story in watches that I've ever heard. Because, we all have it, right? Like tell us you interview people, like tell us about your favorite watch, tell us your best watch story. Like I think he's got the best watch story.
Yeah, well, let's maybe we can get him on as well because it sounds like a bit of an amazing story. But just going back to your limited edition watch that you're hoping to bring, when are you actually going to release that roughly? Do you know yet?
It's going to be October. We're very close to.
Okay.
So it's going to be. We've got $2 coming out. I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but we've got $2 variations coming out. It's a smaller sort of micro brand out of the UK that we've sort of always been very friendly with. That sort of threw the suggestion out last year, and we said, well,
pretty sure I know who it is, but I won't say who it is.
Yeah, Felix is one of us owns one of their models.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
pretty big hint.
They make great dials, but I think it's amazing that
just give it away, damn it.
I didn't give anything away. I just said they make great dials.
UK make great dials. It's not going to be hard now.
But I wanted to quickly say, and then Lung has her question, that when you said you guys they approached you or you approached them at 12 months ago, that was like you're only 6 months in to the podcast, and then you're doing a limited edition. I thought that's pretty great.
We were honestly, we weren't ready. There's a lot of things we're not ready for this. Just the timing's not right, or we're just not experienced enough to carry it. This relationship has been there for a long time, and it was sort of so casual and so organic. And I'm like, yeah, that could be cool. Oh, would you do this? Yeah, we do this color.
Yeah, and
we could do this color. Yeah, we'll do a pink dial, like because obviously our colors are pretty bold and out there for a lot of watches. But yeah, like I don't think we would have taken any other brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I got a feeling Felix must be killing you. Must be thinking you're saying way too much.
Oh, we're pretty close. We're pretty close to announcing it.
By the time this is released, I think the watch will already be out. So
I'm hoping so.
Lonely, you have a question?
Yeah. So I wanted to say, I think the difference with like your podcast and us was that in the beginning we were like, nah, I don't think anyone's going to listen to this. So it was super makeshift. Like we even met the guy at the train station to pick up the mics, and it was like, how do we use this kind of thing, right? Whereas you went straight into a studio and you were like, I'm going to do this properly. Yeah. So at what point, right, before you started, were you like, people are going to listen to this? Or were you from the get-go, were you like, hey, tons of people are going to listen to this, let's invest in this?
No, like it's a new thing, right? It's a totally new platform on our own. People probably know the backstory, but Felix and I worked at Time and Tide. We were there for 5 or 6 years together. He kind of stayed a little bit longer. So I always kind of thought like we had a good dynamic, and I think he agreed that we kind of would have these really kind of interesting, funny chats. Like every day we'd go get a coffee, we'd have lunch together, and have really solid banter with the people around us or just together. And we always joked about, oh, we should start a podcast, oh, we should do this, or we should do that. And we did a few videos together, and we just every time we pick up the phone to each other had this sort of really kind of entertaining banter. And it's natural to think that, right? Like, oh yeah, no, we're really funny. Like, of course we are. But I was super nervous. Like, people might hate this. Like, first of all, everyone, you kind of hate the sound of your own voice. So listening back yourself talk is torture. But also the assumption that people are going to find you interesting is really hard. I think we just had enough confidence from the fact that we had worked together and that, you know, people had responded well to our other work. We certainly didn't think that, you know, a lot of people would listen or anyone, you know, would really kind of enjoy it. Like I was saying, I'm still shocked that, you know, people pay attention and listen and message us. And, you know, you guys get it too, where it's like, yeah, someone listens and then sends you like their thoughts on the episode, which I just love that someone takes that time. I think we just agreed that if we were going to do it, we are going to do it properly, because we were sort of coming from a place where, you know, Felix is still the editor of Revolution Australia and does stuff for GQ and you know, at various points has been the editor of other places. And so I think we just had really high standards for ourselves, and that's sort of the use of producer was just like, we have no idea, and we didn't have the time to like learn how to edit software or put any of it together. Like I didn't have time, he didn't have time, so we just figured easier to pay someone. And then, you know, the pandemic dragged on a little bit longer. I got a little bit more spare time and sort of taught myself. But yeah, it was just a time-based thing, I think.
I think you mentioned a key point, which is the chemistry between somebody, right? It really shines through, I think, on the podcast. If you don't have that chemistry, the audience feel it. They know, right? And I think, you know, Long and I, it's funny that you said, because how many private jokes have we shared between us where we don't think anybody finds it funny, and we're just like literally in the corner, just laughing our heads off about something really crude or something, right? So I think that really shines through. Yeah, it's always weird. Like, so we did a pilot episode that we recorded as a test, and we sent that around to probably half a dozen people. And hey, what do you think? Right. Should we do this? Is this, be honest? Because, you know, we haven't, you know, we're not too invested at this point. Should we do this? And everyone sort of came back and said, yes, do it. And I think that gave us enough confidence. And then from there, it was just sort of like, you know, I mean, I had to listen back. We did a submission for some podcast awards, and I listened back to an episode from probably this time last year, a little bit earlier, just to grab an audio excerpt. We sound so different. Like, and I said, Felix, this is what a year of practice does. This is, and it's sort of when you understand that, you know, people do forgive that, and people listen to it and they get over it. And if they like the personality, like the essence, they'll kind of put up with a fair bit of, you know, things like shitty audio that you stress about at the start, or, you know, a guest cutting out, or someone's flustered, or someone you think you're boring, and whatever. Like, people will actually tolerate a lot of that stuff because that's not what they're listening for, and they don't listen to it with the same ear that you do. Yeah. But just going back to that watch you're coming out with, right? You said like the process, you know, you learn a lot in that process. What did you learn?
Mainly around like timelines and production and all the different elements that are involved. Like, I think, you know, reading, for example, about the Rolex, you know, making their non-comment on production, and people sort of arguing all sorts of different angles. But the big one is, you know, Rolex is not immune to the pandemic, for example, right? Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Something like a pandemic can throw everything into disarray. You can have absolutely everything in-house, but if you're trying to ship that, you don't own a shipping company, right? So shipping delays, if you're getting shipped any raw materials, even if you make everything, like, you still have to organize logistics. So complete immunity does not exist. And the ripple effect of, like, you know, if you're dealing with a smaller brand versus someone who's a bigger customer to, say, a hand manufacturer or a case manufacturer, like, you fall down the list of priorities, and their manufacturing has been impacted. So you might say, yep, we can still make the same volume, but we just can't get the cases, or it takes a longer turnaround because everyone is now shipping stuff. FedEx is busy, DHL is busy, like, it doesn't matter. So the timelines of, you know, making like small changes and, you know, all of the different components that are involved, regardless of what's in-house and what's not, has been a huge factor. Just learning about, you know, like, what this change means to, say, a price, or to, okay, we want to change this. Okay, we'll have this back in 3 weeks to look at it again. You know, obviously time zones, all that sort of stuff. You just don't. And when there's so many people involved, right? You got a brand that's very well established now with a, you know, very solid identity. And then you're kind of coming in and sort of, you kind of have this, like, not negotiation or compromise, but you just meet in the middle on things. It's like, oh, hey, can we do this? No. Oh, okay, why not? Oh, because of this reason. Okay, that's good to know. How about this? yes, we can do this. And just like learning the minutia of it all and just having those conversations and kind of agreeing and not creating something that looks like, looks like shit basically, and just kind of creating something that looks half decent and then working out, okay, how many do we sell? Well, we can only make this many a month, so we can't give you more than this allocation. So
how many are you selling though?
To be firmed up, but I think we're doing 30 of each style was the agreed number. So there'll be 60 all up, 30 of each styles numbered, pretty special.
Can I ask, right? Are you going to do this like Hodinkee thing where you've pre-sold it all before you put it on your website, right? And then nobody gets it, and then or even like people have like literally seconds to decide that they're going to buy it.
No, we're not. So we won't be selling it. It'll be through their website. I don't think no retail network's going to get it, so it'll all be through their website, and we'll basically just do social and announcement. Obviously, if you're in our Discord, you'll get the heads up probably a few days earlier. But no, we're not facilitating any pre-sales. I don't think we need to, because like 60 watches, the price point of this brand is sort of $1,200 to $1,500 US. So, pretty affordable if you're thinking about buying something fun and supporting us. And, at this point, they just did one, which was 30 that sold out, within a few hours. So yeah, it's nice to sell out. That would be really cool. But it's certainly, a year plus effort of a team of this many people. It's not, it's not a huge money maker. It's more of a fun thing to do.
It's surprising actually how much discontent there is on like really successful launches, right? You've seen the backlash with Karuna Tokyo, with people like really getting annoyed that they can't get a certain piece. And then, they did that thing recently, which got a bit of attention about, I don't know the details about, but I think it was a watch targeted for women.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was the colorway.
There was a huge backlash about that. Obviously we all know Hodinkee's issues, well documented. Is it like there isn't seem to be like an ideal situation, right? You produce too many watches, you can't sell them.
People get angry if they depreciate. People get angry if they lose money. Yeah, I don't know. I think the thing with Hodinkee is they're just so big, and people don't really understand how big they are. But to have a team of 60 people and most of them not be involved with actually writing about watches, like they've moved me on to such a big business, and their audience is, they're number one for watches, and it's enormous. So they could double, triple, 10x probably their production and still do it. And the watch brands have a lot of say as well. Like the watch brands don't want to be doing high volume limited editions with partners, right? Because it becomes a point where like, oh, why don't we just do this ourselves? And it goes beyond, I think for most of the time with Hodinkee, it's a branding exercise for these brands. It's not about actually revenue. For Hodinkee, it's revenue, but for the brands, they don't want to, give them too much power either. So yeah, I don't know. I think when you have an audience as big as Hodinkee, that, millions and millions and millions of people are on every single day, like there's never going to be enough for everyone.
I think, oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I think I remember like watching an interview with Ben Clymer talking about all the limited editions that he's done. And the two takeaway points that I remember was, first, like in terms of choosing the brands, of course the brands have to come into agreement from both sides, but also when Hodinkee approaches a brand, like he starts from a point where he chooses a brand that he thinks deserves the general recognition of the public. And he's done a lot of them with independent watchmakers. So if you look at like, he's done MB&F, he's done like Grand Verrier. So he's I'm personally like, I would buy their watches, and I have bought their watches from in the past. So that's how he selects the partnership brand. And then the second takeaway is it doesn't matter like what watch that they make or what changes that they bring to the model. They try to I forget the exact how he phrased it, but he was like, I try to bring something about the brand that is like under the radar to the general public. So for example, when he did it with Vacheron, it was with the Cornavache, and back then they didn't have the steel Cornavache. And then Ben was like, you know, Vacheron has a long history of making steel chronographs, so let's try something like of a different material and then like bring it into the general public's recognition, which I thought was pretty cool. So then my question to you is, like, obviously, well, like we're not going to talk about like the brand that you guys are collaborating with, but when you're designing the dials, were there questions or were there discussions that came forth where you were trying to like just bring the best of both worlds, so like both your vision and then what the watchmaker's vision was? Or was there any idea that came forth from like the brand's past that you try to kind of emphasize in the current models?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we wanted to play to their strengths, which is definitely the dials, as you sort of mentioned, right? And I was kind of thinking, like, if you're going to do a dial in this color, which is pink, right? Just to tell you, similar to my background, we wanted to play to that strength, and we wanted to, because with the techniques that they use, which is, you know, hand enamel.
You're just giving it away at this point. You're not hiding it.
You might as well just say it, man. Like, it's so if people don't know now, they weren't in the market for it anyway. But go on.
Exactly. But playing to that strength was really important to us, and doing a color that they didn't kind of have. And it's a newer brand, right? They don't have this existing pedigree to lean on and be like, oh, we're gonna do this, but in steel. It's also it's a new case size for them, which is really exciting for us. So it's the launch of a new case and making it like a little bit special. And so we kind of wanted to reflect. For us, it was about reflecting the kind of two sides of personality that I think the podcast stands for, which is sort of like approachable and fun, but also has a bit of authority behind it. So kind of offering two dials to reflect either side of that. And that's, I think we've done. In terms of like the layout, we were pretty invested in the layout and kind of doing something that played into what the watch actually was, not getting confused and throwing all of these different design elements in there. So the layout was really important. And, you know, even down to we've done like a really nice caseback engraving as well, which was sort of important to us. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different because it's not, you know, it's not a brand like Tag Heuer where you can tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you guys have this skipper, you've never done it, do it with us and you'll sell a heap. But I think to your point, the Ben Clymer, you know, comment, I think that's really fair and valid from him. It's not, I don't think it's, you know, marketing or BS. Like that's true. Like no one was buying those Vacherons beforehand, right? No one. Do it in steel, see what happens. Oh wow, look what happens. You know, even down to,
they introduced the steel in general production.
And that wasn't their plan. That wasn't Vacheron's plan to like, oh, okay, so we'll launch it with Hodinkee and then we'll leverage that hype and do steel. Like, no, that was a response to the Hodinkee suggestion, 100%. And I mean, Breguet, Blancpain, like so many underappreciated brands that you know that they're fans of because they started Hodinkee that are not getting love. But you do a limited edition with Hodinkee and you sell out, you know, $1 million of stock is amazing.
Yeah.
Because
why do you think? Because there were a lot of, and while on the topic of, you know, collab watches, there were some backlashes when Hodinkee started releasing these collaborations, right? Why do you think, like, is it out of just, you know, jealousy, like some people are jealous that they're doing well, or because I remember from the interview that it was with Waco, and they were talking about the Vacheron, and Waco was like, you know, people were kind of talking about it because it was the quote unquote best watch that Vacheron had made in years, and then they made it specifically for Hodinkee, and then people were like, like, you know, this is funny, I don't know how to react. I like it, but do I like the fact that there's the Hodinkee factor to it? What do you think about that? Like, it is kind of a funny thing, right? I don't know, for me, because I actually owned that watch before, and when I saw that, and I didn't know that it was a collab with Hodinkee. I just liked the general aesthetics of that watch. And I remember when I was looking for it, I actually wished that it wasn't a limited edition because it would have been much more accessible and cheaper and for me to find. But then I remember like I bought that watch not really for the Hodinkee factor. I bought it because of how it looked and how it resonated with my style and taste. So do you think, I actually don't know what I'm trying to get to because
I think I do.
yeah,
I don't think that the Hodinkee factor is like the guaranteed sellout. I think the Hodinkee factor, honestly, 90% of the time that they do a collab, is they take a model or a brand, a model, you know, from a brand that is underappreciated, and they make it better because they know the brand's history and heritage better than the brand most of the time, right? If I'm going to be honest, why is Tag Heuer not doing, you know, a skipper on their own? If they had done that model without Hodinkee, it would probably be a really good seller. And you see the new releases from the last couple of years that all of these brands involved with, like that early influence is there, and a Hodinkee is a way to test it and test it in a limited capacity where the costs are split, right? Because the commercial on that side is they split the costs, and you're getting free publicity as a result because Hodinkee are obviously selling it, so it's going to appear on the biggest watch website in the world.
Yeah,
and
that
then
makes
it goes
really
well, take it and run. But like the Ben Clymer's knack and the team's knack is being like, this watch would be better if you did this, and this. Let's do it. And then they do it and it sells better. And we all, as collectors and enthusiasts, see that with watches, right? If it's a, you know, Black Bay that's too big, wouldn't this be better if it was this size? Wouldn't it be better if this was different? Hodinkee have the power to go to the watch brand and say, this would be better if it was this, do it with us, and like, we'll show you. And that's what happens. So like, I think that's what the Hodinkee effect is.
I agree. So then going back to your previous point where you were saying, you know, like watch brands don't want to give too much control over to Hodinkee because like, yes, we're getting publicity, but Hodinkee is also getting more publicity, right? Because the watch brands that they're collaborating with like is larger than Hodinkee, even though Hodinkee is the, you know, number one for in terms of like watch news. But then do you think in that case, since Hodinkee or Ben and his team knows the audience so well, then maybe the watch brands shouldn't think that, you know, we are giving too much control over. Maybe it's something that they actually want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's set precedent for a lot of, you know, what we see in the watch industry now, which is retailers getting limited editions, retailers getting exclusives, online exclusives. You know, press release overnight. Bravos are doing a watch with Panerai, like special edition. Like collaborations are like my view on collaborations is if it's two parties coming together, then they both should bring something different and unique and create a stronger, you know, result from the collaboration. Hodinkee is, you know, the strongest watch media platform that you can go to, and any brand that goes with them is going to leave stronger, except maybe Rolex and Patek.
Do you think Tag Heuer did that though with the Mario and the Tag Heuer digital watch?
Yeah, and look, like
do you think?
They've sold out, right?
I think it's a bit too easy, right? Like, does it really elevate both brands? Like, you know, like, does it?
In that instance, in the Mario instance, I mean, obviously it's sold out. The e-gaming stuff is a fascinating sort of subsection.
Yeah, true.
Connected watches are big and popular, and like as enthusiasts, that stuff's not marketed to us anyway. Albeit I am wearing an Apple Watch, like it's not marketed to us. It's an entirely different customer, and I think that's the thing that if you go back to the Hodinkee example, there are so many different kind of people that read Hodinkee. There are people that, you know, check in once a month, and there are people that read it every week or every day, and then there are people that are in every comment, like in the comment section on Instagram, watch everything and like die hard, positive, negative, whatever. But I think that there's, and you know, there within that, then there are people that only read, you know, James Stacey's articles, that only, you know, listen to Stephen Paul when he was on Hodinkee Radio, that only like Joe Thompson. Because it's so broad, there are like subcategories. So they might do a watch that doesn't appeal to 80%, but they don't need to, because it's so big and so broad that, and so limited in whatever they're selling, that they do not need to.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to move off this now and go back to your podcast, right?
Sure.
So you actually have a matchmaking segment in your podcast.
Yes.
Right. So what's that about?
Yeah, watch matchmaking was sort of one of the core things that we've been a little bit busy because it's so time consuming, but it was And as you know, once your friends work out that you're working watches and that you're into watches, you just get asked every day, should I buy this? What do you think of this? I've got this much money to spend. Can you give me some suggestions? I thought, well, like, there was a car trek segment called, car matchmaking. I think Spike Ferriston hosted it for a few years and sort of basically matching people's criteria to their dream car. And I thought this would be really interesting to do for watches, but it's a great way to talk about watches that not everyone's talking about. And so, everyone, if I got 10 grand to spend on a watch, I want something sporty that I'm not going to lose money on, cool, go buy a Rolex. But if you do buy that, great, see you later. You're probably not, because you can't get it. So here are the great other options. And it was a really cool way for us to engage with our listeners and audience, and then use that as a way to kind of launch off and talk about really interesting models and test budgets and test criteria, and really kind of discuss why people have certain criteria in the first place, and talk about models that aren't just new but can be vintage. And it's a really cool kind of discovery part of the show.
So how does that actually work though? Like, do you reach out to the guest, your audience beforehand? Or
so we have like a form on our website. People can kind of drop in their criteria, or they can email us, or they can shoot us an Instagram message, and then I'll tell them to email us. And normally it's sort of, we ask for, your budget, or tell us the currency that it's in, we can convert it, watches you've been thinking about, and, what the occasion is. So we get a lot of like birthdays, we get a lot of emails, sort of around 5 to 10K, 15 to 20K. I'm looking at this, but I missed out. Can I buy this? But it's normally milestone stuff. And it's normally like, this is what I've kind of got in the collection. So give me something that's going to add to it. And that's always, a good challenge as well. We've had some really fun ones, but it's like, I got 80 grand to spend. I want something fun. I don't care about value retention. And you're like, okay, cool. This is sweet. And then you do it, and then they go buy. You're like, whoa, hope I gave you good advice. But it's those always kind of turned out to be just fun conversations.
Right. I just want to also touch on something that you mentioned before in the podcast, which is, you already actually work with brands, not just like Anne or Dane, where you're making limited editions, but you monetized, because your show is sponsored, and it monetized very, very early. Like, did you know brands were going to pay straight away? And then that's the first question. And number two is, what are the many ways you can work with brands?
No, I mean, like, Hodinky was probably the only podcast that we knew of that was getting really kind of solidly sponsored by watch brands, right? And so these are really old-fashioned, well-established, rigid organizations that are very big, billion-dollar companies that have media agencies and all that sort of stuff. So there was no guarantees. We kind of knew that watch brands were very supportive of Felix and I and our relationship and the work that we do across everything that we've done in the past. And we've been lucky to kind of really have really great relationships with them. And it's been interesting. It's sort of like, it's the same with guests and the same with people that you think are the support. It's never the people that you expect that kind of come out of the woodworks to kind of lift you up. But we were lucky to get, I can't even remember who I think within the first 5 or 6 episodes we had a sponsor, and then it kind of continued on uninterrupted until, we've only just taken our first break last month, which has been amazing, because obviously it helps kind of keep the fire alive and keep us going. We always said from the start, like, it doesn't have to be hard to work with brands or be sponsored. You just tell people and be transparent about it and say that at the start, and not kind of pretend that you may or may not be. And so it's really easy for us to just go, this week's episode is sponsored by this brand. We're talking about this. Hang in there. And that approach, I think, has fared us quite well. And, obviously being able to attract new brands and new sponsors. The other work that we do a lot of kind of content, so written content, photography content for brands, for retailers. We kind of contribute to a few different places together. Collected Man is a big one that we kind of alternate probably monthly. We do an article for a Collected Man, which is quite fun because it's sort of a really long and in-depth place to put our thoughts. A lot of work. A great team over there. We just recorded with Silas a couple of days ago, who's the founder of a Collected Man. And it's just, I mean, we've got a really cool event next week for us. We're doing a live podcast for Cartier, which is pretty cool, and been wild to think that they're one of the biggest luxury brands in the world is kind of hiring us to do a live podcast for their kind of VIP clients. So that's something new. But yeah, we just kind of chat with brands and see what they want and see if we can do it.
Do we
That's great.
ever take a brand where, when you take money from someone, right, you can't say sometimes what you honestly think about a brand, right? Maybe less genuine. And I think that's, I'm asking that question. It's a tough question but I think that the audience do think that, right? Like, you take money from a brand. Well, hang on a minute. Do you actually even think that thing is cool?
I mean, honestly, like the money when you pay for your costs and time and whatever is involved and then you split it, it's not change your life money. So it's pretty easy to say no. And I mean, we said no. The first brand that approached us, we said no to because it wasn't the right fit. And I actually said, Felix, like,
probably
honestly,
Patek isn't right there for you, is it?
Yeah, Rolex, no, we don't need you. We don't need you. Like, honestly, it gives you that freedom, but you just choose who you work with. And we've said no probably the same amount of times we've said yes. And
okay, right.
And it's part of it. And obviously as a business, you don't want to be saying no to clients, but it's limited, right? So we do one sponsor per episode. We can't put 4 different watch brands in. We never would be able to. That would be a disservice to them, and it wouldn't be sustainable. So we've always said, we need product in our hand. We're not going to talk about something we haven't seen. So I've got a box in the cupboard with our next sponsor coming up with one of their watches. And I've had that for a few weeks now, probably 3 weeks, and I'll have it for 6 or 7 weeks by the time that campaign's done. So I genuinely do have it for a good period of time. Sometimes, I get sent the whole collection to look at, to photograph, to play around with. I'll weigh the watches. I can measure them lug to lug. I can, get the calipers out. I can do all that stuff. But it just comes down to don't work with brands. And we have a list of brands that we just would not work with. And we always joke around, oh, would you do this? Would you do that? What if it was 100 grand? Would you take 100 grand from, this brand? And it's like, and Felix is very adamant. He's like, no. And that's part of it, right? Like it becomes more work than it's worth if the brand's not the right fit. And so I'm pretty proud of G-Shock is a brand that's been really supportive to us. I must have 10 G-Shocks that I've bought over the last 12 years. So for me, that's an easy fit. We've done a lot of stuff with Nomos. Again, like an amazing brand. Like Felix's, I think that was his, first luxury watch was a Nomos. Like Longines, like for their 2020 stuff, like had a really strong collection. So it's not hard. And we sort of, if they do approach us, we then look at the catalog and look at the angles and pitch something that works for us. And if it doesn't work, we just move on.
Okay. How aware do you think brands are to the power of like a podcast? Because I think me and you as podcasters at least know that, hang on a minute, like people are staying on to the podcast for like half, they don't tune out. What kind of medium now grabs that attention of a consumer? And then if you really look at the demographics of the listener of a podcast, they tend to be more affluent, more like highly educated. So at least at this moment. So do you think brands are like aware?
I think they're getting there. I think there are brands that are like in 2021, there are brands that are in like 2015, and there are brands in like 2012. But they're getting there. I mean, the fact that we have sponsors, and it's like there have been brands that we've spoken about for 12 months that like we have amazing relationships. They'll pay us to do other work like content creation, writing. They sponsored us at other places. So, Time and Tide sponsor, for example, and they're like, yeah, we want to support you, but policy is no. And there are brands that have straight policies like we don't work with podcasts or radio. Yeah, okay, fine. But like they listen to every episode on the way in because they just like the show. And those are really fascinating chats to have. And it's like, well, if you like it, you're not alone. And they say, yeah, we know, but we just can't. I think in general, like you'd be hard pressed to not appreciate the power of a podcast, right? Like it's so intimate and so personal and so personality based, especially this stuff where it's like people chatting. And it's like, I'm part of this conversation and I might agree, I might disagree, but I'm part of it and it's taking place in front of me and I'm engaged. So yeah, I think the amount of brand managers and brand people and brands that we talk to that are like, that they get it. And it tends to come down to just where the brand actually stands on, this format.
Which brand was like the first brand that you guys thought, okay, yeah, we are a match, let's do it?
Oh, geez, I have to think back. Probably Nomos. Nomos has been one where we've just had such, I have such fond memories of visiting them at Basel World with Felix. And it was always a brand where it's very close to Felix. He's got a club that's sort of engraved with his son's birthday on it. And he's had it's iconic to Felix. And so, he was kind of like my guide on the first Basel that I went to with him and the team, and sort of Nomos was a brand where we would peel off and just go and hang out with them. And like, it was like a safe haven. I don't know if anyone's been to Basel, but it's just mayhem. It was mayhem. There was no food, there was no water, nothing to drink, there was nowhere to sit. But Nomos had this like beautiful kind of booth that was set up, a very big booth set up that you could kind of escape to. And it became like a bit of our safe haven at Basel. And like the team that's been there, a lot of them are still there, a lot of them moved on to other roles, but it was always just fun. And it was always just this like such a fond memory for me. And every time I think of Basel, it's like straight there. And so when we were chatting to them, and we always had great relationships with the team at Nomos. And so when the actual opportunity presented itself, they said, "We never sponsored a podcast, but yeah, we like you guys, so we'll give it a go." And I said, "Great, we've never done a podcast or worked with a watch brand on a podcast, but we'll give it a go." And that's sort of continued. I think we're on to our third or fourth campaign with them, which has been amazing because, yeah, it's just such an easy brand to get behind.
Have you had any kind of I wouldn't say
froze.
backlash, but yeah, Dan always
Right,
freezes.
I want to come to the end of.
Okay, we gotta edit that part out.
Edit that out.
I wanted to ask, I wouldn't say backlash, but have you had any kind of like negativity since you started working with the brands where people were like, "Hey, you're taking money from the brands"? Has anyone said anything negative?
You know, we've obviously, like, we've worked with in a paid capacity with brands for a long time, and the main thing that we looked at from those publications and other publications was the way that some people try and do like the sleight of hand and act like they're not being paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, I would look and say, like, it doesn't matter. Money makes the world go round. Like, these things cost money. It's not cheap to operate a business. And as long as you say, like, we are working with this brand, they've sent me this watch to look at, that is why I have it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I think. I don't know anyone that has read a review or listened to a review on a watch and then has gone out and bought it and then gotten really angry that it was different to what they'd been like. That's just this, everyone's like afraid of this scenario that I just don't think happens.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, like, I just, we were very cautious of the transparency. So every brand that has paid us, it is like in the show notes on social. It's obviously mentioned in the show. Like, we say it at the start, we say it at the end, we do the ad read or the content piece around it. If a brand supplies a guest to us without payment, like, we still say this came to us via this brand, even though it's not hard to work out. So the transparency has been really strong to us. You get the occasional question of like, "Oh, do you really like this watch?" And I go, "Yes." Like, this was, the brand said, like, choose watches to talk about. And this is the one that I chose. This is the one that, you know, Felix chose to talk about, or these are the selections. So yeah, I've probably been surprised at the minimal backlash that we've gotten. You know, obviously some people might not like the particulars, or they might not like brands in general, but that's just, you know, hyper niche communities. I think, like, you're never going to please everyone, but we try and do our best at making, you know, talking about brands in an interesting way and in our way, right? So we don't do straight ad reads where it's like spec sheets. We do it the Felix and Andy way, which I think has probably helped us a lot.
Okay. And you know how you were saying that this is all really new to the brands. So when they well, I don't think they come to pitch to you, or neither do you pitch to them. I think it just happens organically that you end up working together. But then when you do start to talk about just money, right? How do you come up with a figure? Because they are new to this. There isn't someone that you can just replicate and be like, they are getting paid this amount, because everyone's different. Like you said, the chemistry is very different, and the whole theme of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the figure thing, we started just working off like costs. So we had a studio to pay for, we had subscription fees to pay for, we had a producer to pay for. So we actually had a pretty like good estimate on what an episode cost to make. Okay. And we said, look, if we're going to put the work into making this sponsored and putting your ad in, like, you need to pay for that, because otherwise, like, we're happy to keep losing money, but if you want to be involved, stop us losing money. And then as, you know, the demand increases, then that's when obviously, you know, you can start charging more, because all of a sudden it's limited, right? We're now doing one episode a week, so maybe 50 episodes this year, and I think we'll only have 5 that weren't sponsored. So if there's someone who wants to come in with a big campaign and take out a big chunk, then, you know, we've got our rates that have been paid for the last 18 months to support it. And yeah, and like, not being greedy is important as well, and realizing that, your place, and that we're not Hodinky Radio size. We're just sort of our size, and we're in an Australian market. So just sort of being like realistic and doing something that seems sort of fair to everyone, and trying to deliver as much value as we can to listeners and the brands.
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what do you think, like, I don't think we asked Felix this question, or maybe we did, but where do you see the podcast going, like, say 1 year from now, and then say 3 years or 5 years from now?
Yeah, definitely continuing weekly. I don't think we're going to do a lot of product, just like the experience has been, it's so much work, and we have other things that we do that honestly make us money. I work full time. So for me, this is like an add-on. This is like my time out of my weekend, time out of my lunch break. So it's genuinely not like a money thing for us, and we don't like pay each other a salary. It's like end of the year, we go, okay, what's left? I just want, my goal is to kind of keep building the caliber of content and the guests that we get. Like for me, it's about the thrill of getting, locking down an amazing guest, or kind of getting someone to commit to come on and just telling kind of really interesting stories. So I just want to keep, growing the listenership, growing the Discord channel. That's really fun for me. I don't know if you guys use Discord in any capacity, but we sort of set one up 3-4 months ago, and it's just been like the funnest thing ever. Kind of seeing it, it might go quiet for a day or two, and then something happens and it fires back up, and there's 100 people all talking at once, and it's just this like really cool platform where we can kind of chat to everyone. And I was sort of getting a bit sick of social media, and Instagram DMs were just getting so tiring, dealing with all of that, and then Discord has been a great way to kind of chat to the diehard fans and the people that are really kind of into it, and sharing opinions and thoughts, and getting on voice chat and sending pictures around. So yeah, just kind of growing the listenership and growing the caliber of guests. Like we kind of joke about who our dream guests are, and if I can get to the point where it's big enough that you can kind of land one of those dream guests, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just want to talk to The Rock, basically.
We all have this. Yeah, it's like for you, it's The Rock. For me, it's Oprah. And like and I always think to myself, am I being realistic? But obviously in your head, your first reaction is obviously they're not going to talk to us.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'm like, they're just human. Like, what
Yeah.
if?
What if? That's the attitude, right? Like that's how the whole thing started. I was like, why wouldn't these like, what is everyone doing right now? Everyone's locked up. How hard can it be to convince them to come on a phone call? So yeah, we've still got some exciting guests up our sleeve for the rest of the year, but I just want to, there are people I'm working on that you just want to really lock down.
Sorry, Dan.
No, I was just saying, like, we never thought that we would get the people that we got on now. Like, like when we started, we were literally trying to get to 10 people, like 10 of my friends that collect watches, right? Okay, yeah, done. Like, and then you think, how long can this interview go on for? We're going to run out of people. But then now I guess the point, we're never going to run out of people, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Just very surprising. Yeah.
I wanted to say,
right.
I think, I'm not sure if you experienced this, but sometimes you interview people and I wouldn't say the bigger they are, but you end the recording and you kind of feel like it was very staged, or they're very smooth and they're very good at this. Does it happen to you, and do you still get surprised, or you can already kind of expect who's going to behave like that?
So part of our rule with guests is we don't want to take guests that have done the circuit, done the rounds. That's sort of the first rule we have. And the other one is, I don't want to tell the same story that everyone else has told. That's why the James Cox story is so important to me. No one had told that. And I don't think anyone's done it since, which again, I find that really cool. And if we are getting, a popular person on, like, Eric Wynn, for example, people can listen to him for forever, and he is so kind of interesting. I don't want to ask him the same questions that you guys asked him, because no offense to you guys, I just want to hear something different.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's the point of a podcast, is bringing out different things. So I'll research for 20 hours to kind of find something he mentioned 12 years ago when he was at college, or I'll go super deep, and Felix will go super deep to try and come up with interesting angles. A great example of that would be, we had Chase Fancher from Oak and Oscar, the micro brand from the US. And look, everyone's talked to micro brands, and there's so many popping up, and we didn't want to just have like a boring micro chat. So I said, well, he was actually, he worked at an accounting firm. He's a business background. Like, let's talk about the business of starting watches, and we'll take you on and we'll talk to you about like the actual economics of starting your own watch brand and what's involved, like how much money you have to invest, all that sort of stuff that you don't get normally. And I think that makes for, much more interesting conversation. We did an episode with Jonathan Ferrer from Brew Watches this morning, just came out talking to him about like the costs of CNCing a bracelet and why, tapering bracelet lugs cost so much more money, and how, you can kind of balance that out on a watch that's $400. So we like to, and I think that's probably Felix and I's strength as well. We're sort of just taking different perspectives, even if the guests are, regular, because, like I said, you can get Eric Koo. Everyone loves Eric Koo. You put an Eric Koo episode out and you will double your downloads because Eric Koo is a god in the community, but you don't want to be telling the same old story. So the challenge and the pressure we put on ourselves is kind of coming up and breaking that mold. And to me, it's like a personal thing of like, if I can break you out of, you get this with brand people a lot, like brand CEOs that we've had a few on, breaking them out of like their same stage responses and making them actually be human and answering a question. It takes a little bit of audacity, I think, but getting that out of people, I think, is the fun challenge.
Yeah, totally agree.
Right. So should we move this on to the reverser round?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Let's shoot, Andy.
So I ask you guys questions?
Yeah. You can ask us like one of each, or you can ask us one question and then we all answer. Depends on.
All right. I'm going to do a group question. I want favorite new release of 2021 that you would buy with your own money.
That's just too hard.
Yeah, what has come out in 2021? The thing is, with this question, right? Like all the watches that I want, you can't even get.
Yeah. No, but I'm also like, what happened this year?
Yeah.
All right, mine's probably a Cartier must, one of the color dials, limited edition.
Which color would you choose?
My heart says the green dial, but the red is stunning, as is the blue, and they're so priced so well that you could probably buy all three for like 10 or 12 grand or something. Like they're so well priced, it's silly.
Yeah, but I heard that you can't get them at retail anymore. I think like even those are selling above retail.
Just can't get them. It's a limited edition. I think it's only for this year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Cartier things, but they're stunning. That's one I should have bought when I had the opportunity.
Are we talking about like, are these watches accessible, or like can we actually get it? Yeah.
Yeah, let's be realistic. Can we be realistic?
Okay.
Let's be
if
realistic.
it's realistic, we can't buy anything modern.
Why can't you get anything modern?
No,
like,
let's be realistic.
Like the Cartier, yeah.
And then like of the pieces that you think that you can get in 2021, which one would you get?
Like you can actually get it in the store.
Like that you can get it. You can pull some strings. You can,
See, that's difficult already.
I can pull every string and not get anything. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm pulling strings, I'm going to get the green palm dial Rolex Datejust.
Oh, yeah.
Jubilee bracelet.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's really nice.
That's probably I'm turning 30 at the end of the year, so I'm thinking about like a 30th watch.
Nice.
That's one I'd pull some strings for.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys can pull some strings.
Okay, so then just quickly from the top of my head, because I've been on this I wouldn't say a binge, but since we recorded with John Reardon, I've been just researching on Ellipse like nonstop. And then because there's so many different versions, I've been like, oh, do I buy do I look at a vintage one, a modern one, so on and so on. And then 2021, they had the Ellipse that was carved. It's part of the handcrafted, I believe, from Patek, so black dial, and then they carve onto it. So yeah, if I could pull every string and ask everyone I knew, that would probably be it. Although I do think that it would probably sit a bit big on me, but yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
That is a good choice.
It's a great choice.
But I don't know if you'll be able to get it though. Like,
yeah,
no.
Even if I like slept outside Patek for days.
Yeah. Okay, maybe then let's not be realistic then, because like if we become realistic, then there's literally not much that we can get our hands on.
Yeah.
Surely.
What would I want? I think for me, it would probably also be paddock, but then
Mhm.
like if we're dreaming here, and then I would want one of their pocket watches actually.
Very cool.
Yeah,
That's John Reardon
there's
effect. He's got to you all, hasn't he?
yeah,
Yeah, it's insane.
it's because like my favorite color is green. So
Same.
they came out with this yellow gold pocket watch also belonging to the rare handcrafts collection
Mhm.
with like the panda and the bamboo,
Oh,
and the dial is made out,
yeah.
I forget the term, it starts with an M. It's basically like putting together wood
Yeah, it's
into a painting,
insane.
and then it's like so realistic. So then like the dial, the backside is this panda with these bamboos, and then the background
Mhm.
is like yellow gold, and then the dial itself is like ghia shade with leaves, or and then it has like a green capuchon. It's so pretty. Like,
Yeah,
can
it's
you
stunning.
imagine that on a dial, like on a wristwatch? If you actually look at all of their rare handcrafts
Mhm.
pocket watches, right?
Mhm.
Like they have the enamel owl, they
Mhm.
have the engraved like lady with the peacock. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's
Did you read
beautiful.
on oh my God, I'm like totally plugging him, but like did you read on his site? He has an article about how this the whole like process with first you have to dye the wood chips and then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
yeah.
I read
I
that.
was like,
It's
oh
it's
my
I think
God.
honestly it's more
Yeah.
strenuous than Grenfell enamel,
Yeah.
because like much more, because you
Yeah.
actually have to piece the like pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It's
just
very cool.
beautiful. They
It's a
have
cool
it in
choice.
the wristwatches, but it's like not my type because they have like the Geneva view of Geneva or something. I
Mm-hmm.
much I like the panda. So, anyways, that's if I could pull some strings and like get a pocket watch. I mean, that's what I would want.
Mm.
Yeah. Dan, how about you? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, like, are we still answering the question of like what
Yeah.
watch would we get 2021?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of one. Like, as I'm restarting my computer thinking about this question, I think the main thing is yeah, like
You have to. Come on.
what?
Yeah.
Really?
We've
Yeah.
all answered.
Do I
And
have to, do I
by the
have
way,
to?
we
What?
stopped being realistic.
Yeah.
So, so you
It
can
lasted
Yeah,
answer
like
but
whatever
no,
longer
you
but
than
it
want.
was, like the question was like modern watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was
no,
this
it
But it
could
year.
be
has to actually
anything.
released this year. Released it this
Mm-hmm.
year.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
2021.
Yeah. Well, to be honest,
You don't have to be
maybe
realistic.
Okay.
maybe an
Yeah.
Anordain or something.
Cool, 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 cool,
All
cool.
right.
Cool.
Yeah, like, because you get those enamel dials. Yeah,
Mm.
like I actually buy into that. Like, I don't want to say lower end like independent brand, but it is like that.
No,
And
I
like,
wouldn't say it's lower end. It's just like an entry
Yeah, entry level.
micro
yeah, okay.
brand that, but the like I've handled
The
them in
quality is
person. The
insane.
Well,
quality is great.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't want to, because the reason why I say that, I don't want to lump it in with
Mhm.
something like, to me, like a Furlong Mary,
I still
like,
haven't seen that in real life.
so
What is that?
You should see like
it's a
it's just
vintage
like
inspired,
yeah.
like vintage inspired
Oh, full
chronograph
on
watch, but
Mari.
with,
I
Yeah.
didn't understand your accent right there. I was like full on Mary. I was like, what's full on Mary?
It's type.
No, but I heard I heard great things about full on Mari.
Wait,
Like
how much is that watch?
like $600 or $400.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on
Okay.
my. I think it's like 400.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at the packaging, I mean, it's very
Yeah, it's
clear that
really
it's a
yeah.
knockoff Patek. Like it's extremely clear. I don't think they try to hide it.
but it's knockoff
It's a
VC or knockoff Patek. Yeah.
it's specifically a knockoff 1463. It's so clear. Like they're not even trying to hide it. Even the packaging,
Okay,
like
there
the
goes our
box,
sponsorship.
it's okay. Even the box is the Patek box. The like kind of like the like a closet, and then there's like a tab that and then it
Mm.
opens up like that. But a lot of people are saying like this brand, this buying this watch and handling it makes me wonder just how much price inflation there is like to these vintage to like vintage Pateks, because apparently the quality is great. I mean, I don't know, I didn't handle it, but yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot to do with vintage Pateks, a lot to do with the name, isn't it? Like the fact is it doesn't say Patek on the dial, so you don't get that premium for the brand.
I
And then
mean,
also there's the
yeah.
rarity as well and the historical value, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very hard to put those in the
Brand
monetary
name.
kind of terms. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one last question before we go into the quick
Yeah,
fire
sure.
round. I feel like we talked a lot about independent, like smaller independent watch companies this episode. Which can I just go around the room and ask like if you could like work with another independent watch company or atelier, which one would you choose? That's like relatively under the radar, but you think deserves the recognition.
Sapaneva.
Mm.
Which one?
Yeah, you said that in an interview as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I just
He
love
actually said
Oh, that's
anything
very
from
cool.
Sapaneva.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sapaneva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
I really want to Sapaneva. That would be one where I just, because I want to do it and because I
Mhm.
like what Stefan does. I just think he is so talented and so cool as a product. Like, and it's not for everyone, but I just look at those watches and I just really want like all of them.
How's your price point?
Well, I think everyone's made to order now, so he doesn't really. He only carries stock of like SUF, which is sort of that sort of mid-entry sub brand. But for Sapaneva, I think they're sort of around like 15 US, depending on what you do with it. Yeah, every piece is now unique, made to order.
Long?
How about you guys? Like I've got mine. If I was to be honest, I wouldn't mind like
I know straight away, but it's not so niche. It's just that it's such a specific style. I don't think that I will get as much wear out of it. I don't know, Dan. You probably won't even guess this. Long and Haynes.
okay.
Yeah,
You've always said Long and Haynes.
because it's just oh my god, if you can see it in real life.
Didn't you? I remember when you went to the Philips preview in Singapore. You're like, oh, I only went
I was like,
because there was one piece from
I
favorite
can't believe
microbrand.
that someone would sell it. Yeah, but they're just so big. I just feel like you need to work with them to be like
you have to make this smaller.
Yeah, make this small and really change the dial and do
lugs.
something different.
You like the lugs though?
Yeah, I like everything about it, just minus the size. And if you were gonna play with such a big size, which is around 40, I think you need to do something more with the dial. Like I just like really busy dials, and they just do an enamel plain white dial.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You, Dan?
I don't know. I think G-Shock, right? Because like the watch I would want to do, I'd want it to be accessible, right? Because I think that's very much me. You know, I want to pander to the masses a bit. Like, I don't want to create something so exclusive. Because let's say you do Lang and Haynes, right? You know, like even you did like a collab with them, it wouldn't be as special as a unique piece. And all of those independents do unique pieces, so I might as well just do a unique piece, right? But for a big brand like G-Shock, even Swatch maybe, where people can actually get that enjoyment, get that entry into watches, and then I can wear it, like get a lot of wear out of it. You know, I can not worry about it and wear it, and I see it a lot. You know, this is my creation. I think that's something like that. Because I was thinking as you were asking the question, Jacqueline, like it'd be so easy to go, oh, you know, I'll do a limited run with Kari or you know, something like that. But then like, no one can afford that though.
No, but
well, not no one, but a lot of people can't afford that.
No, but the question is like brands that you think deserve the recognition. Kari already has recognition. You know?
Brands that deserve recognition.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned Kari, and then most like watch people would know. But then
yeah, but you say that though. I wouldn't say a huge amount. Like, does it really get the recognition? You know, like
I think he's one of like the top 3 in terms of independent watchmaking.
Yeah, you think that. Yeah, but we're in a specific group, right? Where, if you went to, I think, an average Joe who is a watch collector, might have been collecting for like 20, 10, 15 years. Yeah, would they have that appreciation of Kari? Maybe, maybe not.
But
Right?
in terms of independent watchmakers, like who would you
Yeah.
name as your top three? Just as how you would name the Holy
Right now,
Trinity, who would you
I would
name as the top
say
three for independence?
Dufour,
Yeah.
right? Recepi,
Okay.
and then for me, Kari.
I
Oh,
think
hang on.
Dufour and
Roger Smith.
Recepi, less
Roger Smith
people
as
would
well.
know.
in all of this.
Yeah, Roger. Sorry, Roger. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, might have
See, I
ousted.
wouldn't
Yeah.
I wouldn't even name Dufour
Same.
because it's just like you
Why?
it's like so obvious that you don't need to name. It's like
Yeah, but then you can't. Then, well, if you ask that question, you're gonna he is an independent watchmaker, right? Like, unless you ask the question, okay, you can say all three that are not Dufour. Yeah, then it's like, okay, then you answer with three different people, but you can't say that question and say, oh, we can't this one because he's too great. Well, like, is that
yeah
fair?
see, I wouldn't even consider him like as an independent watchmaker anymore, because like his brand is so much more just, I think he's just way past that.
No, he's still independent though.
He is, but I don't think people discuss him like with a main like independent mindset in mind. I think when people discuss him, it's mostly about like his legend and his finishing. It's not about, oh yeah, he's independent. I mean, that's at least to me.
But you could apply that to Takari. You could say finishing, Recepi again, finishing.
But you know how some brands, like when the first impression, like when you hear their name is okay, independent. Like Urwerk.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to my mind is like, okay, yeah, independent. MBNF, independent innovation.
Yeah.
But when I think about Dufour, or when I think about Roger Smith or Daniels, it's no longer okay, yeah, they're independent. It's like there's so much, they're just so far beyond that point. I don't know, it's like a psychological thing.
So you're saying, in your opinion, like George Daniels, Roger Smith, Dufour, they're all above Kari and Recepi? Because right there, you've got like Holy Trinity right there, right?
Yeah, but what's the framework? Like, what am I judging on? Am I judging on fame, or am I judging on auction results, or am I judging like what am I
judging just on the term of independent, right? Because that's the question.
The question was which independent brand that you think you want to work with, that you think deserves recognition, like more recognition to the general public.
Well, I thought your question was, maybe I thought your question was, who was the top three independents?
Oh, that was my second question. My initial question was like, who deserves recognition, and then my second question was like, yeah, top three independents. But then like, see, even top three independents, I wouldn't even. Maybe it's just I don't even dare to name Dufour as like within that category anymore, because to me he's just so unobtainable and like so far away.
No, you're gonna get it one day because you're insane. Like, you're insane with collecting
why
watches.
wouldn't you name it Long?
Dufour?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought the question was just if you went out right now to the like just asked any random person, name three independents, it will always be MBNF, Debethune, Urwerk. Generally.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, like they just feel independent. I don't know why.
Did
like
you say
they
that,
just
Andy?
feel independent. I mean,
I just say independent by ownership. To be honest, like independent of a group. So by that definition, I'd consider Patek and Rolex. Yeah,
I guess people have different.
Everyone's got different definitions.
Yeah.
But I mean, Dufour, Smith, Recep. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, I mean, there's it's hard. It's probably like a top 5 at this point. But there's some great stuff. I mean, that section of like independent watchmaking is an absolute boom at the moment. So I don't know. Francois Paul Jean, like, is he good at making watches?
consider chore
You know,
and independent anymore. It's just so commercialized at this point. I don't. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like RM as well, right?
yeah, RM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So that's the reverse around done, right? So let's go to the pump push around. Now, I think you're a bit lucky here,
Uh-huh.
Andy, because Felix, right? I gave him 50 pump push around questions, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
we're gonna
We're not
dial
gonna
it back
do
a bit.
50.
We're gonna dial it back a bit, right? Because he was a bit of a guinea pig. And I think
Uh-huh.
after all of it, he was pretty exhausted.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Let's go.
number one, the best thing about living in Oz.
Coffee.
Oh, okay. Your favorite food?
Strawberries.
Your favorite dim sum?
Vegetarian ones.
Okay. Last watch purchase?
Ooh. A Rolex Daytona.
Which one?
The black dial ceramic.
Okay. Have you ever had sellers or buyers regret?
Every single Rolex I've ever sold, I regret.
Mm.
Right. Life quote that you live by?
Ride waves don't make them.
Mm.
Rideways don't make them. Okay. Last thing on your camera roll?
My dog,
What dog do you have?
a Samoyed.
Mm.
What's on your playlist these days?
Patrick Droney's new album, The State of the Heart.
Okay. If you could live a day in the life of someone, who would it be?
Nah, just me. I like my life.
What's the
I like
best
that.
thing about COVID?
Not commuting.
Right. One thing you can't leave the house without, and it can't be your phones or your keys.
Oh, my watch. I have to be wearing a watch when I leave.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a tough one, actually. What other podcasts do you listen to?
Oh, I listen to heaps. I'm true crime. I'm listening to one called Paper Ghosts right now. I'm Up and Vanished. I've just restarted on. What else? Spikes Car Radio if you're into cars. Two Bears, One Cave if you're into comedy. Case File. It's a great Aussie crime podcast. I'm just looking at my phone. To Live and Die in LA. Heaps.
Mm.
Okay. Right. Something you want to have achieved by the end of the year.
I don't know. I have no answer to that. I don't.
Okay.
Yep.
One thing you can't live without.
Coffee.
Your biggest fear.
Small aircrafts.
Okay. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Tall, dark, and handsome.
Right. Okay. Very accurate.
That is very accurate.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What is your go-to emoji?
I love the flaming heart emoji at the moment.
Mm.
Oh, okay. The most misunderstood thing about Aussies.
The weather's always good here.
Okay.
Mm.
If you're going to go to Oz, right? Aside from the Opera House, where else should you visit?
Definitely like Melbourne. Skip Sydney, come to Melbourne instead, and just experience the Melbourne CBD.
Mm.
Okay. The habit you have that annoys Felix the most.
I'm pretty grumpy without coffee, and we do a lot of early morning recordings.
Mm.
Right. One book recommendation.
Ooh, okay. The Dry by Jane Harper.
Okay.
Mm.
First thing you notice about someone.
Their watch, obviously.
Okay. The first drink you order at a bar.
A double whiskey neat.
Okay. The most annoying thing about Felix.
Oh, the most annoying thing. Just can I only pick one?
Okay, go for it. Should I air your laundry?
I don't know if I can pick one. No, there's nothing annoying about Felix. He's great.
Okay. Right. And last one. Your next watch purchase.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm hoping to get the new Kermit for my birthday at the end of the year. So black dial, green bezel, Submariner.
Okay. Well, good luck on that.
Is Rolex your favorite brand?
It's my favorite brand, yes, to own. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, classic.
Well, that finishes the podcast. So thank you very much, Andy, for your time.
Thanks
And
for having
for
me.
being such a great sport. It was a really easy one to do, minus the technical difficulties I had on my side. But
Yeah.
you speak very well.
Pleasure.
If you liked it, please follow and subscribe the Waiting List podcast, and also check out the OT podcast with the same name.
Yes, please do.
All right. Ciao.
Thank you,
Thank
Andy.
you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah.
Bye. As always, thank you for listening to the Waiting List podcast.
We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And if you have any questions,
Comments
or feedback,
feel free to reach out to us at the Waiting List Podcast on Instagram or via our private accounts.
We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
bye.